Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Melvin Wei. Search for me on YouTube to find my channel or my videos. I'm pulling up the remains of the Swiss chard plants that I harvested from the previous growing series. I'm going to reuse this potting mix in this pot. So the black stuff you see popping out underneath is the potting mix. That's just how it looks after being wet for a very long time and decomposing continuously. The stuff on top is what I put on the clay soil to rescue the series, which didn't get off to a good start. After about 30 or 31 days in for the first episode of the last series, there wasn't much growth at all. So I'm removing large swaths, double handfuls of this potting mix, and I'm going to scoop in a lot more clay soil. Clay soil is very heavy. I get it from the nearby hills in San Marcos, California, where I live, and it's got this reddish orange tint to it. So soil prep is the most important thing to starting a series in soil, and potting mix just doesn't seem to cut it. For the last 2 years I've really struggled to get off to a good start. You can see starting from my passion fruit series all the way up to 2018. It's been a struggle at times. Some plants do adapt very well to it after the root systems become vast and form a giant root ball that entangles every dirt molecule in there, but in most cases my plants just get off to a poor start, or have in the last 2 years. So I'm figuring that by amending this with clay soil and really mixing it in well, it'll create great conditions for growth. Clay is very rich in nutrients. It holds on to water better than sand or silt and can have drainage problems, but because I still have mostly potting mix in here that I've used for who knows how long, maybe it's been months or years here in this case. It was once sterilized when I bought it from the store to prevent fungus gnats and spider mites, more importantly, from taking hold, but fungus gnats have come back eventually into all of my pots because there's always fungus growing on that decomposing potting mix. So this is a packet of Bok Choy, more commonly spelled Bok Choy. I think that's a Cantonese spelling. It's one kind of Chinese cabbage. It's a confusing umbrella of many different vegetables from China. So days to germinate 10 to 14, days to harvest 30. I'm a little bit suspect, but that's what drew me to this packet of vegetables. There are so many things I could grow from the shelves of Lowe's, and this one is the one I chose because of the days to harvest 30. I wanted something quick and something I could stir fry and eat at the end. So these seeds are black and they're very small and spherical. They look like the type that would just roll over and fall into the cracks. And that's just what it did right there. So it's hard to give you a good visual on many of these things, but that's the first seed I'm going to plant right in the center. And then I'll plant maybe 6 in a hexagon around that, and then go out a little wider and put them in whatever intervals I like for a total of I don't know how many. So I didn't keep track, and I might have a total of 18 or 19. So after that I'm going to layer some clay soil on top. It says 1/4 of an inch deep for the seeds on the packet. I don't think that's a hard and fast rule. You can do 1/2 inch or whatnot. 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters for those of you who aren't in the United States. So this clay soil, pure clay soil on top with all the pebbles and large particulates thrown out by me, will form a good seal. It's very resistant to water when dry, and as you just saw, it kind of is powdery and it flakes off. It becomes airborne, so that's the kind of stuff that can get stuck all over your shoes and the very bottoms of your pants when you're out there hiking. But once it's wet, it forms clay basically, and it'll form a very good seal of moisture that will benefit seeds, and it'll provide a lot of anchoring that potting mix cannot. Potting mix is large particles of bark, wood chips, sphagnum peat moss, twigs, and things like that. And it provides for good aeration and drainage. Too much, I think, because I'll show you why later, but if you refer to my past videos, basically, I think the top of potting mix, pure potting mix, just dries out way too fast. So it's day 5, and almost all the seeds sprouted in just 5 days. So that's a very pleasant surprise. I watered heavily the previous day on day 4. I don't know if that had any effect at all, but it was due. Normally I would water the top lightly or moderately every 2 days when I'm trying to germinate something, but it's been 4 days because it's been very cloudy. So since that last watering I just showed you on day 0, I waited 4 days until I watered. So these don't resemble adult bok choy vegetables at all. They resemble very generic looking weed sprouts. The stems are whiter and thicker at the base, so in those regards it does resemble adult bok choy, with a vegetable that we're used to seeing in Chinese restaurants and so on. But other than that, they just look really weedy, and I have no idea what their appearance will be like in a few days even. So it's day 6. Finally, I have some sun. There are a lot of May gray days where there's a marine layer on the coast. This is a few miles inland from the coast, but marine layer caused by cold, wet air forming fog or clouds that just kind of sits very low in the sky and creates these cloudy days. That can extend quite the distance inland, and it typically doesn't burn away until later in the day. So you can see some white clumps of mold. I think that's just caused by me watering this clay soil, which has been parched for the longest time in the wild. So the mold that was latent in there and growing on whatever organic twigs and root fragments you can see here, that came alive and is reproducing. So at first I was very apprehensive about watering like this. It's the first watering of the shoot systems from directly overhead. I did water on day 4, as I mentioned, copiously, but everything was underground, so nothing could get disturbed. And to my very great surprise, nothing fell down. In the past, with pure potting mix series, a few of the seedlings would need to be rescued. They would just fall over and lay flat. That's because there are too many gaps in between those large particles of wood bark, sphagnum peat moss, wood chips, and twigs and things like that. So there's not enough anchorage provided by the soil. So it's day 8, and these seedlings still bear no resemblance to the mature vegetables we eat. However, they're much larger. Assuming these pairs of leaves are cotyledons, I still don't see any true leaves yet. So it's hard to imagine I'll get mature vegetables to eat in 22 more days. Although I have had many series which really took off after the beginning. So growth can accelerate and go parabolic. But I'm thinking by the end of 30 days, maybe I'll just have baby bok choy. Maybe that's what they mean. Because most of the other vegetables mature in 2 months, maybe 60 days. Especially if there's things like beans involved, or but this is just a leafy green, so I'll just eat it when it's ready or the right size. So I think maybe that's doable, but it'll have to grow a lot faster than the Swiss chard did, and maybe that's what it'll do. So far it's just longer, whiter stems, and the bases are no longer thicker than the tops. So in that regard, it's a little different. I'll spin the pot around 180 degrees. I've had the watering tray opening at the bottom of the self-watering pot facing me, and I'll have it facing the outside as soon as I'm done filming here. So nothing fell over. Actually, I think we just had one fall over. So 1 out of 19 falling over is not bad at all compared to the past. And I counted them, so there's 19 of these. That must have been the number of seeds that I sowed. That's a 100% germination rate. That's really good. I'm going to fix this, get it upright, and buttress it with some mud, and hopefully that won't happen again. Please stay tuned to my YouTube channel for further updates.